John with the Pro Cut back here at the tile renovation. All right, and so when you're doing retrofits and they're not changing the floor, so you're trying to bring the shower pan out to the existing tile, and you're dealing with carpenters from the 90s, everything is now off, and so I'm having to bring this drywall out. I'm going to need to add a 2x4 in here for structure because this all needs to be built out so it can hold the glass around for the shower. Same on this side, and this side's even worse. And you can see I've got my laser and then I trace the line so you can see how close it is to this door on this side. And the same line, which should be the same distance because it should be square if it was built properly, is much further out. So I've got this side figured out. If I shim out the existing sheetrock a 1/2 inch and then I take a 2x4 and I rip a 45 off of it so I can screw this onto here, then I'll be able to put on another piece of 1/2 inch Durock to make up that difference, and that way it'll bring my edge out for a clean 45, and when it's all said and done and blended in, you'll never notice it. And that's what you have to do on retros. This side is even worse. I've had to pull the trim off the side of the door and strip all the sheetrock back because I need to make up 2 3/8 on this side because of how unsquare everything was. But when it's all said and done, it'll look good. So we're gonna add more wood in here and bring this out. And we'll just change the angle of the wall, and once it's done, you won't notice. So I've got this side built out, and you can see I've had to cut some more off of there. That way I can massage this whole corner in with new spackle and everything. And then I'm gonna have to move this out because this angle is gonna change here. This will no longer be a 45. It'll be a little bit steeper than a 45. But you do what you gotta do when you're dealing with a retrofit situation. And then on this side, it's filled out, and I've filled some of the larger gaps with foam. That way it'll be easier to spackle over. Once that dries, just cut the excess foam out of the way, and then you'll be able to mud over that, because this seam and this seam down here, they all need thin set mortar, and then you'll do sheetrock compound on the outside, put a bead on it, and then everything will be ready for waterproofing, and then the tile. And now we've got some place for the glass door to mount to where it's out at the edge of the shower pan where it needs to be. And again, the whole reason we did this is because the existing tile work, we would have never been able to match this tile from the 90s. So rather than having a border along that pan that didn't match this, this is the way it had to be done. I've got all my markings laid out. You saw in the time lapse with the laser. This way I can measure out, and I'm going to swing around and show you now what I've got going on. The critical thing here is the center line of our niches, because we want to put our glass mosaics through the center line. So we get that center line. Our glass mosaic is going to be 6 inches. So we come down 3 inches and we add 1/8 to that for the gap. And then we go 4 1/16 all the way down till we get to our bench, which is right here. And that leaves us with 1.25 inches, and then we minus for the gap and the tile. And so we're left with 1.125 inches that we've got to make that first tile once we come off of this bench. And I'm laying them out in 1/3 spacings. I've made my first cut, so I'm dry laying out the tile for the top of the bench because that's where I'm going to start. And these tile on the bench will overlap the tile on the front of the bench. Will be back from that, so they'll overlap that, and then I've got a piece of Schluter trim that'll cover the edge of the tile and make it look real nice. I don't recommend anybody do things the way I do. Make sure you use safety glasses, and you should probably have a push stick. You shouldn't just put these through by hand, but I've been doing it this way a long time, and this is how I learned to do it. I can get away with it, but it's not smart. Here's what everything looks like dry fit. I've got the Schluter trim in there that covers up that edge. And so now I'm ready to mix up some thin set mortar and get that section of tile done. glass mosaics, you want to make sure you're using white thin set mortar, not the gray. That way it keeps your glass tile a lot brighter and it's a nicer finished product. Hey guys, so here I am. I've got all the tile done now except for the insert around the window. Other than that, all the tile is done. So tomorrow I'll be able to finish around that window, clean all the mortar off the tile, and go ahead and grout everything